Welcome to the latest episode of First Word of Sport. We are recording this on Monday evening. How are you getting on, James?
Back in Blighty, -5, only a 25-degree difference. Yeah, can't complain. Not too bad in yourself?
Tired. Back in Blighty myself, having been in Canada. It's positively warm here, James. -5 seems quite reasonable. Mad day, obviously travelling with 3 young children. The joys of being a parent. Amazing, news stories and sport, over the weekend. Lots to talk about. So let's get stuck into it. Obviously, the big breaking news today is Amorim. We'll come on to that in a minute. Let's start with the title race. Feels like it was a pretty big weekend with regard to it. Arsenal got the win away at Bournemouth 3-2, and then City drew 1-1 yesterday with Chelsea after the last gasp equaliser from Enzo. I think, any particular thoughts on Arsenal?
Job done again, wasn't it? They just keep grinding out wins. It's actually, to be fair to them, it's pretty impressive how they do it, how they keep grinding out wins. And people say about it, it's a sign of champions when you're not playing well and you keep on winning games. And they seem to be good at ignoring all the outside noise that's going on. But I do wonder how they can keep it up, how sustainable it is. But Declan Rice is in form of his life. I see he's almost like centre-forward favourite for Ballon d'Or, which is a little bit aggressive. But he is playing the best football of his career. He's been given licence under Arteta, with Zubimendi, who talked about last week. Quite impressive again. Odegaard's coming back into a little bit of form. Gyökeres is still garbage. He won't be in that team. Once Havertz and Jesus are back up to speed, and they'll put Mourinho, he'll be back on the bench, to be honest. But yeah, going 1-0 down again, and then coming back and winning 3-2, moving 6 points clear. 6 points clear is a lot, but
their title to lose.
Definitely, it's their title to lose. Put the pressure on them. They haven't won in 21 years. So pressure does funny things, as we discussed. So, and then Man City, that's a shocker result for Man City.
Just touching on Arsenal quickly, I think, as you touched on, I think what has been impressive about Arsenal is they haven't played as well as they can. I don't think they haven't hit the heights, and yet they are, normally, obviously not necessarily against Bournemouth, but so solid defensively. I think it just always gives you a chance in games, and I'm intrigued to see if they do actually hit the heights, because if they do hit any heights, you could easily see a league win by double-digit numbers. I think it's going to be interesting to see, but they're definitely in the box seat at the moment. City yesterday, I said, really, just everything about that game was a shocker. So whether it be the result, whether it be the injury to Gvardiol, which looks like he's going to be out for a while today, Diaz is going to be out for a while. They've had to recall the young lad, Aileen, from loan, I think he was at Watford. So when you compound everything, it was just a disastrous result in the end yesterday for City.
Yeah, Gvardiol, I think he's had an operation, hasn't he, today, or needs one in his shin bone or something like that. Diaz is off. Yeah, that's why the rumours have come out today, probably about Mike Gay. They want him in January, and if they want someone like that, they'll go and get him. Doesn't matter if it costs them 20, 30 million quid, 40 million quid, whatever it is. Well, it won't cost them 40, but if it costs them 25, they're going to get Semenyo over the line. They probably do actually need Semenyo, looking at it kind of thing. And stop Harden scoring and kind of almost job done. That's quite impressive from Chelsea, that actually, to stick in the game and then get your chance at the end. And I'm pretty adamant that you always get a chance in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game if you're 1-0 or 2-1 down, whatever it is, 1 goal behind. You normally always get a chance. Now, it depends how big that chance is, but a lot of the time you do get a chance. They took it. That doesn't say much about Maresca, that performance at all yesterday. And interesting, they played Enzo in midfield with Reece James, wasn't it, on paper?
Well, Casado was out, so his hand was forced, I think, it's fair to say.
Yeah. But again, I was talked about it like with Liam Rosenior when he comes in, it looks like that deal's happening. Who's running the team? Is it the players or is it the coach?
Look, it's going to be the coach, but I think when everything is going well, things are easy. People aren't unhappy about not being in the team and all these sorts of things. It's when you start getting poor results that the finger pointing happens. People start looking around the dressing room saying, oh, why is this player playing? Why is he playing? I'm not playing enough. Agents will be talking to the players. So one thing Chelsea have is with such a massive squad is you can imagine that be quite a bit of unhappiness pretty quickly in terms of playing time. It feels like an incredibly difficult squad to sort of manage. I mean, but sort of taking it back just a moment to City, I think the thing that amazes me with City is Pep has bought this on himself a little bit. I've been shocked week in, week out recently that he's basically picked that same lineup, game in, game out, not used his squad at all, right? This is a City team who have spent so much money again in recent months and over the years. And he's complaining about injuries and not having enough squad players. It was a bit like when Arteta was moaning before the Villa game. They had Rice and I think it was Calafiori out. And that was it, pretty much. And they were moaning about injuries. These clubs don't know they're born, honestly. It's absolutely insane. Is go and spend another 250, 300 million, whatever you want to do, bring in another 5 superstars, and then complain when you have 2 or 3 players out injured. I mean, it's just so annoying.
Well, Guardiola during the summer said, I might have to resign because I've got too many players in my squad and can't keep every player happy because I can't pick them because the Premier League only tells me I can only pick 9 players and only a certain amount of homegrown players certain amount of homegrown players have to play in your squad. I think it's 17 the number, I think it is. And now he complains about this. It's like, oh, hang on a minute here. You can't have it both ways, which he obviously wants. He's just under pressure. When managers say these kind of things, they've had a bad result, they're 6 points behind. They're looking at Arsenal and going, we can beat them, and the rest of the league is rubbish. Liverpool are rubbish and Chelsea are rubbish. So the 2 other big teams you're worried about going to start the season aren't on the same planet as you lot. So you're only competing against one team that past history bottle everything. So that's why he's come out with that comment, in my view.
No, but it brings it on himself. It's no coincidence if you have players playing every game and he doesn't use his substitutes, which we've talked about before, right? Yeah. Shock horror, you get more injuries and fatigue and these types of things. It's like, what planet are you on to think that you're suddenly exempt? I mean, let's not go there in terms of Pep and some of the Spanish doctors and all these sorts of things, right? But I mean, it does make you wonder, honestly. I don't know. It's just a real bugbear when I hear fans complain that they're missing a couple of players because of injuries, and they've got a squad. More so probably with Arsenal when they're missing a couple of players. It's like, honestly, they have 2. They can put 2 teams out there that are unbelievable. But I think it's that my pet hate with Pep. I think it's just it just seems utterly ridiculous, to be honest. But I think they're in trouble now, City, and that's why I think Arsenal could easily win the league by double digits. You're only talking one favourable result now for Arsenal, and if that lead gets up to 8-9 points, it really is game over.
Still got to play them at home, haven't they, City? But 8-9 points, it's 2 bad results away, and they're still not under any pressure kind of thing. And at the moment, it doesn't look like Arsenal are really going to lose a game. That's the thing. They're very strong defensively, we know that, and they do pick up. They're very good set piece wise. So And this Premier League at the moment is a lot about set pieces and being big and strong and physical. And Arsenal are big, strong and physical.
So obviously, what we conclude is Arsenal have won the league. Okay. Here's a question for you. Right, which do you think? Because the prices they're slightly different. They're not massively different, but Arsenal 1.36 to win the league. West Ham are 1.43 to get relegated. Which would you rather have? Which would you rather back?
Both. Yabba-dabba-dabba-doos. Probably Arsenal.
So you think Arsenal are more likely to win the league than West Ham?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's interesting.
I think they're both going to happen. I think West Ham have gone. I know they've bought 2 players today, but or last 48 hours, but yeah.
Okay, so one thing we talk about a lot on here has been, since we started, has been managers. We've seen Maresca off. Cheerio, Enzo. Amorim. Cheerio, seen him off. I think when we started the podcast, I think one of the things that I'd like to think we're probably slightly ahead of the curve generally in some of the opinions we have on things like managers. And certainly, I think that was one of the things that sort of prompted us to do this. And we've been big exponents of Amorim just not being good enough for United in terms of what they're trying to do. He's obviously gone today. Certainly isn't a huge shock to either of us. Any thoughts on Ruben?
Just didn't suit Man United at all. But Man United are a complete mess. Whoever goes there is going to struggle with the current setup with Ineos. Jason Wilcox, who somehow thinks he's now the best ever sporting director. I mean, sorry, you appoint Ruben Amorim 18 months ago, and he wants to play 3-4-3, but there should have been some red herrings when the summer you appointed him, not the summer, but whenever it was, Liverpool needed a new coach manager, Bayern Munich needed a new coach manager, and Barcelona, and he didn't get an interview in anyone. He got himself a plane direct to go and speak to West Ham, and then you go and appoint him. Now, he has success with Lisbon, fantastic. It's a different league. That Portuguese league does produce some good players, but it's a weak league, not a top 5 European league. But you can't have your sporting director going in to the manager and saying, you need to start playing this formation. As soon as that happens, it's game over and the coach will leave. And that's what happened. And it's come out today, the usual stuff that's come out from Man United. We know who's telling the press that. It's Jason Wilcox and co. Their technical directors, whoever it is behind them, saying they wanted him sacked on Friday before the Leeds game. That explains his comments yesterday after the Leeds game about I'm a manager, not a coach. It doesn't surprise me. He's got a nice big payoff. I said last week, I think he'll be quite happy he's got sacked. Probably wanted to be sacked, so it doesn't really ruin his reputation per se. He can go and build his reputation again. As I said, I think Italy's a perfect country for him to go. So they've appointed Darren Fletcher on an interim or a caretaker basis. So he'll be managing his two sons against Burnley this week. Is it Burnley? I think they're playing on Wednesday, is it? Anyway.
Yes.
So he'll automatically go back to 4-2-3-1. The Man United DNA. Gary Neville, please shut the up. Absolute. What is that? That's one of the biggest problems at Man United is still these ultra egos like himself, like Rio Ferdinand, chatting absolute horseradish in papers and in the media, saying the DNA of Manchester United, 2 wingers down a wing, get off your bums and attacking football.
Football changes, Gary.
I mean, I'm not taking any note of what Gary Neville says after his stint in Valencia all those years ago. You can just pipe down and start speaking rubbish on Sky. I mean, look at the betting for for Man United. I know it's not talking about betting, but Oliver Glasner, favourite, right? He's manager. What formation does he play? I know he's always played throughout his career.
Same as Ruben.
3 at the back. So why are you going to appoint someone who comes in, has no ambition ever to play 4 at the back, and you're expecting someone to play? I mean, it's mind-bogglingly stupid how these people are still in charge at United.
I think that would be the big takeaway. I feel a little bit sorry for Amorim because I don't know how much say he's actually had in things like recruitment and stuff. I mean, I touched on it before, but their squad building in terms of addressing needs has been absolutely horrendous. And it's not just last window, you had the window before, and the summer before under Ten Hag. I mean, they have spent so much money on absolute garbage. I mean, this window, obviously Cunha and Burmo, they're both decent players and they're fine. And, I had a friend say to me the other day, I think United are probably slightly better than how I view them. And I said, have you seen them play recently? And that's obviously mainly been when those players have been away. But I also said to him, expectations have become so low at United, relatively, is, they have no European football. They haven't, start the season, they didn't have many injuries, so they haven't got many games. They spent another 200 million in the summer. If a team like Villa had been able to spend the money that United had in the summer, imagine a Villa lineup now, which if you'd added Cunha and Burmo, amongst others, to that squad. I mean, I think it gets lost on, it's just how poor that squad building has been. But they have spent so much money. And you look at that.
They blame the Glazers, right, for taking. Why are you blaming the Glazers? Or if they take money off Man United and they're saddled a club in debt. Again, if you're a football fan, you care about 2 things: winning trophies and how much money you're spending. You don't care about the debt on the club and all this business. You're telling lies yourself.
It just becomes an excuse, right? So you're looking to blame the owners, right? How do you blame the owners? That's the way you decide to blame the owners, okay? I do think the point you make about Wilcox is really true, by the way, is he seems to have a unbelievable reputation given what he's achieved. And I think he'll surely be the next piece to fall if things don't go right.
Why do you go and work for them though? That's the thing. They're a big club, yeah, but
right. So this is one of my absolute pet hates. Right, is Amorim goes. It's the same circus every time. Talk sport. First thing I hear, Simon Jordan, Unai Emery. If Man United want Unai Emery, he'll go to Man United. And it's like, are you just not paying attention to what's actually happening? Oh, the United job's too big. And then you see it with so many pundits across all the various channels, all saying, who should United get? Well, who's been successful recently? Oh, Unai Emery. Oh, Unai Emery's going to go there.
Or Nagelsmann, or Inzaghi, or Luis Enrique, or Hansi Flick. Yeah.
But part of the point is that, one of the reasons Amorim's left is because of the structure of United in terms of them all interfering and everything else. The one place that Unai Emery is not going to go is Man United, right? And you can cut this clip. You can come back to me at any point. I can absolutely guarantee you Unai Emery will not go to Man United. They can offer him £50 million a year and he will not go to Man United, right? It's what you're doing by saying you think Unai Emery would go to Man United is not understanding what Unai Emery has at Villa and what he actually has helped him be successful in terms of all the support. It's basically Unai Emery's club at Villa. He controls everything. You go to Man United, you control nothing. And I think what you've seen with Emery is that, and what people don't realise, the ties between Emery and Villa run a lot deeper than just a manager at a club. Like Emery's son, Lander, is part of Villa's youth team. Emery's brother runs a team in Spain, which Villa's owners own as well. There's so many little interlinked areas that mean that Emery just disappearing to Man United for a bit of extra money just isn't happening. Oh, it's so annoying.
Gareth Southgate, please. Sir Gareth, why Sir Gareth? And that wouldn't surprise me with Ineos.
Please.
They aren't good custodials or sports teams. Look at their past history with Nice, cycling, even the sailing with Ben Ainsley, and that furore it's happened in the last year or so. The courts still going on, kind of thing. They're not good. Jim Racker's not. He might be a fantastic businessman, but he's certainly not anywhere close to being good in the sport industry at all.
So one interesting aspect to me about United is Barada. Obviously, he came over from Man City, so he's not been at United long, but I don't feel like he's covering himself in huge glory at the moment either. You know, because I'm assuming Wilcox reports to him. I just wonder if it's one of those ones where you get dragged along by the whole City success. You know, keep spending all that money, and you have Pep, and everyone gets dragged along and is viewed as great type of thing. It's a little bit different when you have a proper job.
It'd be hilarious if they appoint Glasner. It could be Christmas come early for everyone else, kind of thing.
Well, but I've said to you before about Glasner he is unproven, obviously unproven at that level, right?
Yeah.
But
it's more than three at the back.
Yeah, but his Palace teams, right? They sit back, they concede possession, they hit teams on the break. It's your classic mid to lower table team approach, and it's very difficult to get away with that at the top teams.
Oh, yeah, completely.
So, Amorim, bye-bye.
That's 2 out of 20. How many do we have on our list? I think we had about 12 or 13, wasn't it, something?
Well, I mean, I think what we touched on was that certain pieces will fall. So, Glasner might now potentially go to United, or, I think one problem United have is that we touched on it with Chelsea potentially appointing Rossinha, is it's very difficult to get quality managers in at this time of year. And I suspect it's playing a part in Slot still being in the job, Frank still being in the job, and some others, is you tend to be a little bit more reluctant to pull the trigger if the replacement is that, is tricky to find.
Yeah, I agree with you. Going on to Slot, it's another poor.
Let's talk about one of your favourite topics, James.
Oh, it was shocking. That first half yesterday showed everything about why Slot isn't capable of turning his form around at Anfield or at Liverpool. I think you're right in terms of they're probably now waiting for they can't get the coach they want at the moment, and there's no point appointing someone like a Rob Page, who's the under-21 coach, the ex-Welsh coach, to take over. I mean, there's obviously some ridiculous fan noise about Gerrard, whatever. It was complete rubbish.
Please.
Yeah, exactly. Another one, please. But yesterday's performance was shocking. Again, it's just like, take the blinkers off some Liverpool fans. It's football. Like, they don't know how to attack. They play one attacker. Ekatike is now injured. And then Harry Wilson scores a great goal. He's turned himself into a half-useful player, actually, Harry Wilson. Great goal. The Wirtz goal is just offside. It's just no two ways about it. It's just
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute.
And then, obviously, Slot makes a change, which half an hour too late anyway. Frimpong, the one chance he does get, puts the ball across and Gakpo knees it in. Cody Gakpo, that was truly abysmal yesterday, made Troy Deeney's BBC Team of the Week because he scores a goal. Absolute well done, BBC. And then the 96th, 97th minute, Harrison Reed steps up. First goal for 3 years, belts it in the top corner. Now, nothing to take away about the goal of the season. It's unstoppable. Just look at the Liverpool defending. Just look at it. They are, by the time he picks it up, the nearest person who gets near him, by the way, is Virgil van Dijk, and he's 5-6 yards away from him. Dominic Szoboszlai is 3 or 4 yards behind every Liverpool player. It's just it's a comical goal to concede. I know it's goal of the season at the moment.
I looked at it again earlier actually, and they are so far away, and he actually got the shot away quite quickly that I don't know.
Didn't even need to. Could have run another 5 meters.
And maybe that's part of why it looks so good is he hit it so early. What I would say is that there were 2 instances in that game I saw. The first goal Wilson scored is watch Konate. Go and watch what Konate. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's garbage. Watch Gravenberch as well for that goal, by the way, as well.
And it's just some really basic stuff. And then even Gakpo's goal is, what is the defender doing at the back post? It's like, you cannot get caught the wrong side like that. Yeah. It's just, it's disrespectful to schoolboys. It's really basic stuff, and I do feel sorry for these managers at times, because they'll sit there in their meetings today, watch that back, and be just going, "What on earth are you doing?"
I don't think he's I think he's tactically inept. I think he's run his race. He has no idea how to control the ball. His pressing is sometimes non-existent. He asks the players, and then he asks the forwards to press, or the one forward they played recently to press, and then the defensive midfielder 20, 30 yards. And again, it's 2 or 3 passes and they're onto the defence. Anyway, moving on from start, we'll move on to the next manager coming back.
Well, let's talk about the Wirtz decision just quickly. We've touched on it in terms of refereeing and decisions, and one of the problems is perceptions, okay? Is if you stick graphics on a screen like they have done, and it's clear that Wirtz is ahead of the defender, and it's not even that close relatively. Yeah. It's obvious that he's ahead of the player, and that's the graphic you're sticking up there. Then you can expect to have all the backlash that you're getting at the moment for that decision. It is a shocker, right? There's no 2 ways about it. Is you're overturning the decision to give that goal, by the way.
Yeah.
They really have, and I understand that in the Premier League, it uses a different system to most of Europe in terms of Champions Leagues, where in terms of
you got 5 millimeters of grace or something, 5 centimeters.
You get 5 centimeters in the Premier League, and you get 1 centimeter or 5 millimeters in Champions League football, right? So you're using very different systems. It seems crazy that the technology is not there for it to be. The Premier League should be able to afford the best technology. But once you make that, it's just so unsatisfactory as a fan, and you'll get, what's his name, Dale Johnson, who used to be on ESPN all the time. He's now on BBC. He always talks about the officiating decisions, and he'll come out and say, "Oh, it was a correct decision, and it was all about tolerance levels and all this sort of stuff." And yet, it might well be, according to the rule book, the right decision, but visually, as a fan, type of decision is just absolute nonsense.
Yeah, it was offside.
Just what I would say about the Reed goal, by the way, and we saw it with the Enzo goal for Chelsea. It's just the narratives that surround teams on the basis of late goals and crazy late endings. So we could easily be sat here today with Liverpool having won again, with City having won, and a lot of the narratives have changed on the basis of a late goal and things like that. I always find it interesting how single moments really affect people's opinions on some of these things.
It's been a season of late goals. Bring a shot clock in.
Well, so I think one thing I would like to see them bring in a clock to manage time, so it's really obvious and really clear to everyone, because we did have a weird situation at the end of the Arsenal game, and I'm sure it made no real difference. But there were 6 minutes of added time at the end. Bournemouth were in the middle of an attack. It was maybe 6 minutes and 15 or something, 16 or something, and the ref blew when they were just about to cross the ball in, and it was like there was plenty of time wasted in that 6 minutes before that. That it just seemed so inconsistent that when you see some of these referees, they just carry on and on. I'd much rather have something really clear, and by the way, it is a nonsense the way that time is up and it's like, oh, we'll just let them get the ball in as a general rule. But when every other referee does it for every single game, and then you get a referee who doesn't do that, and then it just becomes a bit weird. So it may well technically be correct, but then it's that inconsistency again compared to every other match that you see.
Well, it's like a 30-second sub, right? But you can walk off the field the nearest point you can do, or you can walk back towards the tunnel area, or the halfway line where the dugouts are. Because obviously, some tunnels aren't on the halfway line. Grounds, obviously. Yeah, I'd bring in shot clock. We can discuss that maybe another time, but yeah, that's another.
Let's have a quick chat about Thomas Frank. This is one of our favourites. Another woeful result for Tottenham. It was a bit of a weird one yesterday in that they played pretty well for that first half. We've got a very good friend, a big Spurs fan. He said they played really well in that first half, and obviously goal came from a set piece again. I think it's ended up 6 games now that Tottenham haven't scored an open play goal against some pretty mediocre teams. I think what was really telling was just how much they sat back in that second half. You've got a tired Sunderland team who are missing literally 6 or 7 starters. They're 1-0. You're 1-0 up against them, and you're making negative. Yeah, I mean, you're making negative substitutions. You're making, your team sitting deep. It just seems absolutely ridiculous. And he has lost the fans, I think. And I don't know if it's going to be a question of whether they can find another manager, whether they'll end up backing him, giving him a few more months in this window. But we've said it before, if you play terrible football and you're not getting the results, you will not last long at Spurs.
Yeah, and a tough game midweek as well, away at Bournemouth.
Talking of managers, I see Celtic parted ways with Nancy earlier.
I mean, that's record, isn't it? 8 games gone. Another terrible performance and the result. Actually, also, I was here when Lanzarote, and I was walking back when Celtic were playing Rangers, and a few Celtic fans were walking there. I didn't make a comment at all. I thought, keep my powder dry and out this comment. They weren't happy. I said, yeah, right decision. Again, he's gone in there, tried to change it, formation change, and the players didn't like him. And as soon as he used the players in the dressing room and the fans, it's game over, and they took the right decision. They've gone back to Martial, who actually had a really good record. He had 7 wins out of 8. He only lost at home or in one game in Europe, I think, got Michelin. They got stuffed 4-1, but they beat Feyenoord at home. So he's now got the job until the end of the season. That Scottish Championship now might be quite interesting, actually. I wouldn't be backing against Celtic getting back into that race.
Well, so I think Hearts are 6 points clear of Rangers and Celtic. I mean, given how bad Rangers have been and how they started the season, it seems just incredible that they're within touching distance. I think Hearts must, if they can sneak out a couple more results, who knows? I think the one problem Hearts will have is that they have to play both teams multiple times again, which makes it tricky. It means you can drop points very quickly.
And they've got that end of season where they split the league into 2, don't they? So you have to play an extra game, yeah.
Let's talk about another manager who is under huge pressure. Nuno at West Ham. That performance, he said, let's go with what he said. He said it was the worst performance he's seen from a team he has managed. And
they're not good comments.
Well, I think it was interesting because I was watching this game live on Saturday, and I was shocked, to be honest, at the attitude of the West Ham players. So, obviously it's on the manager to, get the players in the right frame of mind and set the team up correctly. But, he rolled out a team that has done okay at certain times in recent weeks. And there should be enough quality in that team. Obviously, Paqueta was missing. But there should still have been enough quality to cause a team that hadn't won all season some issues. Obviously, it doesn't help when you concede as early as they did. But the lack of fight and spirit and, from West Ham sort of had to be seen to be believed. They were second to every ball. I mean, this is a Wolves team who have literally nothing to play for. And I was slightly surprised with West Ham that maybe just before Nuno got appointed, so when they were at the back end of Potter, things were going some of the performances they put in were awful. And it feels like the players had given up playing for Potter. Nuno came in, attitude looked like it improved a bit. It looks like very quickly they've gone back to a similar mindset in terms of, willingness to just do the basics, just trying hard. And I just don't see a scenario. I just don't see a scenario where, obviously they've got a massive game against Forest, a huge game against Forest tomorrow night. But it's telling that they are the underdog to a Forest team who has been dreadful. Okay, and you're at home. It's a massive game in terms of if West Ham get the win, then they drag Forest right into it. Forest win and West Ham are as good as relegated. But I am shocked at just how poor West Ham were and how little fire they had in their bellies.
Not a good sign, as I said earlier in those comments at all. No, it's a poor result. But Wolves, we touched on it against Man United. They were similar. They didn't look like they were interested. But in the last few weeks, this was Man United at home, when they lost 4-1, not when they went to Old Trafford and got the 1-1. The last few weeks, they played all right. And they kind of probably got their victory, their performance have deserved. And that the young kid, Mane, the 18-year-old, looks a real prospect. He's one to keep an eye on.
I jokingly sent a Wolves friend a message after 5 minutes just saying Mane can come to Villa if he wants. And then as Mane got the penalty, it's like, no. And then obviously scored the goal. Definitely no. Get your hands off. I mean, he looks...
Yeah.
He looks a proper player. Yeah. I mean, physically, he's ready for... He doesn't look 18, let's put it that way. And the only thing... What amazes me is that he hasn't been given a chance sooner.
Yeah, where has he been? Especially when you're in that predicament. Derby, watch out though. Derby might still hold the record as 11. They're halfway there, more than halfway there. Got 6. Can we just touch on Brentford, sorry, quickly? Very briefly, that's a fantastic result at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. And they've got 30 points, which is, everyone's saying that they're in real trouble, a couple of us included, but that's impressive. 30 points, and Thiago got a hat-trick there. Another good win for them.
Okay, so let's take that form line. So Everton being thumped by Brentford. Okay. Who did Everton lose? Who did Everton beat last weekend? Or last time out? Nottingham Forest 2-0. Right, so that was not a great Everton team. So one manager I want to touch on is Dyche. So obviously Villa played Forest at the weekend. And it's tough to explain how poor Forest were. I think there was a clip at some point during that first half where I think Villa had 78% of possession or something at one point. And what really would worry me as a Forest fan is, so Villa completely dominated that first half. And obviously the best chance was Watkins very early on, before obviously Watkins scored later on. Loads of situations where things just didn't quite happen. Yeah, Villa played pretty well, but they were allowed to play well by how Dyche set them up. It was so negative from Dyche. And what would be really concerning is hearing players afterwards say that they thought the first half had gone to plan and that, it was what we were hoping, almost what we were hoping for. It was not what you're hoping for. If you're going into that changing room and the manager's saying, you've done a really good job in that first half, that is the wrong manager for you. They were abysmal. And the attitude, we have a problem with Forest at the moment, and there's a real disconnect between their performances and the players that they have. You look at that squad. You've got Murillo, you've got Milenkovic, obviously you've got Gibbs-White, you have Anderson, you have Hutchinson, Hudson-Odoi. You have so many, on paper, decent players, and their performances see them obviously in 17th place and deservedly in 17th place. They were terrible, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they get on against West Ham. And what I do wonder, by the way, Anderson, obviously everyone bigs him up to be an incredible player, the next £100 million midfielder, looks like a superstar for England against League Two teams. If you're that good, when you're alongside those sort of players, and it may just be a Sean Dyche thing that is limiting him, because he's very good at filling padding his stats in terms of, you see Anderson's stats and they all look very impressive. Something isn't quite right in terms of Anderson. I'm not just going to pick on Anderson, but if you're a really great player, you would be having a bigger impact on games than Anderson is. I saw him in that Villa game, and he was completely outclassed by Tielemans and Kamara.
Yeah, I didn't see the game, but yeah, I get the point. It's probably the manager. I've said about Slot, I know that if everyone's playing badly, start looking at the head coach and the manager. It's not like one player's playing badly, it's everyone. They've got some good players in there. Shouldn't be anywhere near the bottom of that table.
I think that's enough on what we saw at the weekend. One thing I do want to say, so Leeds Man U, obviously before Amorim got sacked, I was amazed at how poor Leeds were on Sunday. With the ball, they could hardly string 3 passes together. It was unbelievable just how, I know they're missing Ampadu and stuff in the middle, but it was just unbelievably poor.
It might have been to the emotion of the game. First game played against Man United for a while, 12:30 Sunday around Christmas, New Year. Something to think about, but yeah.
AFCON is not to its latter stages. I think we're down to 10 teams now. I have to say I haven't seen huge amounts of it, if I'm honest. There's been so much other stuff going on. The only thing that really was of interest to me was that Senegal are still in it. That means Ismaila Sarr will still be at AFCON, and it means he can't play against Aston Villa on Wednesday night and score yet again. So I don't know if you've caught much of AFCON yet.
No, not caught any. It's the last 16. Morocco obviously won yesterday. Egypt beat Benin this afternoon. Mo Salah scored in extra time. Mo Salah scored in 120 minutes for the third goal. And Nigeria just given Mozambique a 4-0 thrashing. So last 16, and that goes on until the finals on the 18th of January. So what's that? Nearly 2 weeks. 2 weeks yesterday.
So let's touch on other sports. Obviously, cricket is ongoing, 5th test. So when we're recording this podcast Monday evening, obviously end of day 2, Australia in pretty decent position, only 2 wickets down. Travis Head's obviously 91 not out. England yet again failed to.
It's like Groundhog Day, cut and paste.
Once again, failed to take advantage of a great position. One thing I do want to touch on. Obviously, Root scored 160, and his series numbers at the end of the season will look pretty reasonable. But it's everything I sort of feared, in that utterly meaningless. He's had 2 big innings. One here just counts for nothing. The other one was obviously. It was obviously a very good innings, but when England really needed him, he wasn't there.
He's got a proper red ball 100 in Australia, not a plastic pink ball 100. Yeah, England threw away great position again. Like when you're 50 for 3, and as Michael Vaughan saying Zach Corley should keep his place. Yeah, missed a straight one again. and then you're 200 odd for whatever it is, and then Marnus Labuschagne comes onto bowl, absolute pies and filth, and bowling to get to the new ball. And all he's doing is bowling long hops. They can't be called bouncers because he's 75 miles an hour. So it's long hops. And Jamie Smith, who's already been caught for no ball for 22. And then the next ball after that nicked another one through the slips, looking like completely out of his depth. Whatever's going on with him. Decides to try and slap it tennis-style racket, forehand, over the covers and gets caught. It's one of the worst dismissals I think I've ever seen in Test match cricket. But we go back to it again. It wouldn't surprise me if he walked back in that dressing room and McCullum and Stokes are going, don't worry, great intentions, just poor technique, you didn't get over the line kind of thing, don't worry about it, keep on doing it. And that's the problem with this England side. There's no repercussions playing bad shots. It's all too cosy. It's all too predictable. Just keep them going harder and harder and harder. When you're that score, you should be making 450, 500 minimum. 390 is not enough. And Travis Head is just looking $1 million and making batting look easy. But we talked about...
England don't have a great bowling lineup for this test, do they? Let's be honest.
Rubbish. But we talked about Potts, and we kind of knew he was going to play. What I didn't really appreciate was we talked about Bashir not being given the opportunity to get into match practice or rhythm, which is important for bowlers and for every cricketer, but bowlers. He just looked short of a gallop. The highlights I've seen, he's just bowled way too many four balls, and it's just easy pickings. And Bryden Cars, can we go back to him, right? He doesn't open the bowling for Durham in the county championship. Not that that means anything to this current test side. But what's he doing opening the bowling game for? Why is your best bowler, who is Ben Stokes, not opening the bowling? Why is your most informed bowler, along with Stokes, Josh Tongue, not opening the bowling? And you're giving it to two debutant, basically in Potts and Bryden Cars, who's shown over 4 previous test matches that he should be given a new ball. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and the problem you then have is Head gets in, and he's away. And he's far too good a player to be given a gentle start. If you want to get Head out, you have to get him early. And
the best bowler of England got at the moment is Ben Stokes.
Fit bowler.
Yeah, fit. Yeah, Arch, obviously. But, yeah, anyway, so what's that starting next 20 minutes or so? Yeah, so they need to get Head out quickly and get Smith out quickly. That's why it could be 4-1. But we talked about 4-1 is probably what it should be, the gap in how it's been. And for an England fan, you probably do want it to be 4-1 so you get regime change. Going on now, I think Luke has just dropped off the pod there. I'll carry on. In darts, obviously, we saw the World Championship come to an end on Saturday night. Luke Littler came out on top. He beat Gian Van Gien 7-1 in an outrageous performance in the final there. He's too good, Luke Littler. He's not going to be beaten over 7 sets. He's averaging 105 again. It's ridiculous how good he is. And I did see something actually where he's given some of his mates that he's going to finish the competition on double 15, and he finished it on double 15, which was quite entertaining. But 7-1 to him at the weekend. And then this afternoon they announced the Premier League darts, the 16 Thursday night weekly event that goes on throughout the whole of Europe. So the 8 players were Littler,
Humphreys, Van Veen, Van Gerwen,
Bunting's in it, Gerwin Price. So what's that? 6 on.
I completely lost my train of thought. The ones who didn't get in, obviously, were Aspinall, Noper, Wade. Who else is in there? Searle didn't get in.
Johnny Clayton, Josh Rock, the Northern Irish side, got in.
Yes.
So you've got 8 there. And that starts in a month's time, 5th of February, Newcastle.
I can't believe Bunting's in there again.
What's that, sorry?
I can't believe Bunting's in there again.
Yeah, it's a bit like why they picked Nathan Aspel last year for his walk-on for Mr. Brightside. They picked Bunting for his walk-on, yeah.
Honestly, it just doesn't deserve to be there. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's tough because I don't particularly want Wade to be there because he's not the most exciting. But he certainly deserves to be there ahead of the likes of Bunting. So I guess that's the way darts is going. Just on Littler, by the way, outrageous. I mean, talked about him for a long, long time. And, you know, he delivers. You know, he keeps delivering. You know, these players are good. And he keeps turning up and destroys them. And what you'll see, actually, that victory on Saturday night was big because it will leave some scar tissue on Van Veen, you know, taking that bigger pumping. It will make it that bit tougher for Van Veen next time he has to play Littler. Obviously, it was a big weekend of NFL in as much as that's the regular season done. The games themselves were generally irrelevant, garbage, non-starters, things like that. There were a couple of interesting games. So you had Seattle, San Francisco, which was earlier in the week. Seattle won 13-3 and secured top seed. Obviously, the top seed is really important because you get a bye into the latter stages, and you also get home advantage, which is obviously important. I think what we saw with Seattle, again, is just how good they are defensively. They shut McCaffrey and Purdy down. Obviously, San Fran had a couple of issues in terms of wide receivers and things like that, but it's still impressive how good the Seattle defense is. My only worry with Seattle is obviously Darnold a little bit, but I mean, some of the numbers that they've put up, Seattle, defensively, are numbers that you see from Super Bowl champions. You know, they are, you know, I think I saw a stat in terms of defensive efficiency where the last 5 teams who put up numbers as good as theirs, 4 of them have won Super Bowls. You know, it's that type of dominance. And then we had Chargers at Denver. Obviously, Chargers rested Herbert. Didn't mean anything to Chargers. Obviously, for Denver, they won 19-3, and they secured top seed as well. So what we have some pretty tasty games this week coming up. We have Steelers at Houston, should be a pretty interesting game. Let's see how good this Texans defense is. Jacksonville, so we have Lawrence against Josh Allen. So, I mean, again, I mean, Jacksonville have been sneaky good in recent weeks. Buffalo haven't been that impressive. You know, Jacksonville win there wouldn't be a huge surprise, honestly.
Is that in Buffalo?
In Buffalo. Having been not a million miles away from there, it will be cold, really cold. And then, obviously, New England at the Chargers. Again, it should just be a really good game. You know, we'll see Herbert against May. I'm just intrigued. You know, I love this time of season for NFL. And then in the NFC, we have Carolina against the Rams. What's interesting about that is we could potentially see Rams play Seattle again. So you would potentially have the 2 favorites in the Super Bowl meeting pretty early on. And then we've got Eagles at 49ers. It's just
that's
a great game after great game.
Yeah, that's pretty tasty games there. Pretty like
and then you've effectively got the local derby of Bears at Packers.
Good enough back.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, even if he's not, their backups actually, they've got one of the. Willis is one of the better backups I think I've seen, actually. Obviously, you'd rather have Love. But yeah, I have to say, I mean, it wasn't a weekend where it's probably the least I've followed or watched NFL all season this weekend. It's just been crazy. But I'll be watching plenty of it this weekend. Don't worry.
Saturday night games, aren't they, as well?
Oh, there's all sorts this weekend. So this time of year, it's one of the best weekends of the year. So this upcoming week, we obviously have. It feels honestly, as someone who has to do a lot of football stuff, it has been a never-ending slog. It feels like these last couple of weeks. We have more matches. So we obviously have tomorrow night. We have that massive 6 points of West Ham against Forest, and then on Wednesday night we have 8 more Premier League games before we have Arsenal-Liverpool on Thursday. Let's just touch on that Arsenal-Liverpool game because it's obviously the pick of the games. It's obviously Liverpool aren't going into that game in anywhere near the shape that they sometimes do. Can you see yourselves getting any sort of result, James?
No. I was trying to remember when Liverpool were that big a price in a Premier League game that mattered away. I was trying to work out, no chance of getting a result under that. They're just disordered. We talked about it, yeah. No. I don't mind. There's a couple of interesting games, like Wolves at Everton. Like Wolves are just. We talked about it briefly. They might fancy getting,
Everton are missing so many important players.
Yeah,
I think what you see with Everton is the importance of the few teams, and it's the same with even at Brentford actually. But the first goal in an Everton game matters so much. If they get the first goal, they can sit back, hit teams on the break. They are so well organised. I mean, we've touched on with Dyche, but not Moyes. We've touched on with Moyes before. Is they're so well organised. If they concede the first goal, it's so difficult for them to get back into it because they have so few options going forward at the moment with those other players missing.
There's a couple I just think there's too much football going on. I think I'd rather have 18 teams in the Premier League and then you get all the best players playing all the time rather than resting and rotation and injuries, and I think there's too much football going on.
Well, let's hold the 18-team league idea for another podcast because I think it deserves a longer piece. In terms of this week, I think obviously you got the West London derby, Fulham, Chelsea. I think it's always going to be interesting because I don't know what Chelsea. Would you really want to be back in Chelsea at 2.1 to go to Fulham? Not really. Under that, I don't know if Rossini will be in place or not. I don't quite know how that looks. I need to spend a bit more time looking at these things, and I will do over the next day or two.
It's big, right? You don't know, yeah, exactly. You don't know who's going to be in charge.
Right. So one of the interesting ones is Palace Villa. So it is tough to explain how bad Villa's record against Crystal Palace is. So only home game Villa have lost in 30-odd games recently has been to Palace 3-0. Obviously, FA Cup semi-final last year, Palace spanked. Our record against Palace is so off the charts bad. It is unbelievable. It's untrue. And I would normally go into this game with huge worry and trepidation. I'm actually feeling quietly confident. It's been a matchup thing where Villa haven't been able to cope with Glasner's system a little bit in terms of.
Emery changed it, hasn't he? A couple of times he's gone to it.
I hate that. Just stick to what you're good at. Exactly. And we were absolutely spanked by them at Selhurst Park last year. I think with the injuries that Palace have got down that right hand side with Munoz out, Sarr away. Obviously, Brennan Johnson came in for Sarr, but I think Klein picked up an injury in that game against Newcastle. So I think Palace looked tired, and I don't know. I've just got a sneaky feeling that what I would say about the Villa Palace games is I can't remember Villa playing against a team who they'll score from their first 3 chances, and that's the sort of thing Palace have done against Villa all the time recently. If there's a chance, they've scored. And it's tough to keep that going. So, I mean, that distorts the record a little bit. But I actually have a sneaky feeling Villa might actually... I get suckered into it. But I actually think it might have a chance in that. Because I also think Palace are absolutely shattered.
Yeah, they are, yeah. And they had an away game, obviously, at Newcastle as well yesterday. Obviously got beat 2-0. Man City, Brighton, Pep will probably complain about who's going to play centre-back for them.
Well, the worry you have with that is that obviously Brighton are pretty good in transitions. So, I mean, City look a bit vulnerable against a team like Brighton at the best of times. I mean, Kusanov actually did all right when he came on yesterday. He didn't look too bad. I mean, but, still not ideal. And then they've also got the problem with Rodri, where he played longer yesterday than I suspect that he would have wanted.
I can't see him playing.
Well,
no, he might do. He might not. He definitely won't play in the FA Cup this weekend, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's the classic thing with Pep is, play him until he gets injured. Play him, play him and then be shocked. Oh, he's injured again. It's like, give him a chance. So, and then obviously even Man United away at Burnley, I don't know if everything around United will be lifted in terms of the pressure around Amorim. I don't know if, as you say, Fletcher comes in. It'd be a bold move to pick both sons, but you never know.
One thing we do know, they'll be playing 4 at the back.
Well, I think the personnel-wise means they should be playing 4 at the back. That.
Yeah.
But I know Burnley have looked dreadful, but there's something Turf Moor. I always say this: there's no easy away Premier League games. Away on a Wednesday, cold Turf Moor. I just don't think it's going to be that easy for United, particularly when they're missing all their quality players. It looks like Bruno might be back for a few minutes, but I don't know.
I'll tell you, who looks actually all right for United on this is Patrick Dorgu's actually looked all right in recent weeks.
But he's been playing a different position.
Yeah. But and then when everyone's back anyway, he won't be playing that position again anyway. Yeah. But
I mean, the one player I'd love from United would be Diallo. Obviously, he's away at the moment, but. I do think he looks, I think he looks a proper player. But again, he's playing in weird positions, right wing back, and but
they spent a lot of money on him. Spent 35 million quid on him. It's not like a free transfer kind of thing. No.
They stumbled across another £2 million youngster. Tottenham is interesting. Away at Bournemouth. Obviously, Bournemouth haven't been great recently, but Bournemouth have got goals in them. I don't know if Tottenham have that many goals in them. Could be an interesting game for Frank. You certainly wouldn't want to go there and lose 2 or 3-0. I think he's just very close to being in a whole world of trouble.
And then they play you boys, don't they, in the FA Cup on the weekend as well?
Yeah, and it looks like Kudus picked up an injury against Sunderland. So, I mean, I would say, to be fair to Spurs, is they've had a pretty dreadful run of injuries the last 3 seasons, probably. I mean, they've had so many injuries. It's not just a manager thing in terms of loaded players. So it has to come from the medical staff and that sort of stuff, or just identifying the wrong type of players. But they've had so many injuries, and Kudus is another one. And they'll miss him because they don't have that many great, offensive players as it is. And obviously West Ham Forest tomorrow night should be actually a really good game. I'm actually looking forward to watching it. And
but West Ham don't play good football, though.
No, they don't. No, they don't play good football. I'm intrigued by Forest. I can't believe how bad Forest are at the moment under Dyche.
It'd be interesting how many people are at the stadium that the taxpayer paid for.
Well, I mean, I guess the most interesting thing as well for West Ham is obviously that shocking result against Wolves. Is we touched on them signing 2 players before that game, Pablo and Castellanos or whatever it's called, and it's a big commitment to be spending 45-50 million pounds on players who I don't know if they're suited to Championship. You're not going to get your money back on them if you have to sell them in the summer. Is that the future of West Ham, in Championship? Because they have to be really realistic now, is that their chances of staying up are slim.
They can't really afford to lose tomorrow night. Crumbs. If they did, oh my, the atmosphere there could be really, really bad. But Forest are garbage. I can't believe the prices, but I mean, Forest. Anyway.
Oh yeah. I certainly wouldn't be rushing to back Forest the prices, but in terms of other sports, no golf at the moment. So obviously we used to have the Century or Tournament of Champions event first up in January. That isn't happening because of water shortages, and as these things happen, and water conservation. So opening PGA Tour event is next week at the Sony Open at Wailele, or however you pronounce it. So nothing much on the golf front.
You've been watching the golf in the studio.
You what, sorry?
You've not been watching the golf in the studio with all the players playing in whatever that
indoors.
Yeah, that started.
No, James, I haven't. Honestly, I struggle to find the time to watch proper sport. And then I think we've got a bit of snooker, haven't we, next weekend? Hopefully the timings of the podcast will be more consistent going forward. Obviously, we've both been away, which has made it tricky. The intention is to get one out relatively early on Monday and Friday. I mean, we are toying with the idea of maybe doing something even more than that, even if it's a short clip daily. But let's wait and see with regard to something like that in terms of the actual logistics of that. We just see all these news stories like Amorim today, where almost love to have commented on it, 10 hours ago rather than, at this stage. But anything else, James?
No, I saw the usual Tyson Fury's back nonsense. He said, I'm back for 2026. I see it when I believe it. Maybe he's lost a load of money.
Did you not see the clips of him in the gym?
Yeah. He didn't look in great shape, did he? Too many mince pies, I reckon, or too many kebabs with Luke Littler. Yeah, that's the only thing is Tyson Fury said he's coming back. And then the Australian Open tennis starts on the 18th as well, 2 weeks time, on the 18th of January, which is, we know who's going to win the men's. It's going to be either Sinner or Alcaraz. And we'll move on. Stuff. They'll win the next, God knows how many, unless one of them's injured. So, or both of them are injured, so.
It's not great, is it?
No, they're just, they'll dominate. They'll both win 20 majors, probably.
Right, let's call it a day there. Thank you very much, and we'll catch up later in the week.
Yeah, speak to you later all. Bye-bye.